I'm here in Woodruff, Wisconsin for History Museum Tour number 7 in our How We Got Here series. We're at the Dr. Kate Museum, and we're going to be talking about Dr. Kate a lot for this tour. But we need to start first at the world's largest penny. Let's go. Okay, I'm now standing in front of the world's largest penny with Marcia Dowd from the museum just down the street. Marcia, we're going to talk about how this penny is about to be dedicated, but let's first just tell the story behind this world's largest penny.
Well, in 1949, Dr. Kate Pelham Newcomb, who was a Woodruff physician, whose office was on the site of the current Dr. Kate Museum, needed a hospital here because in those days she either had to travel to Ironwood, Michigan, Rhinelander, or Tomahawk to have hospital rights for her patients. So she needed a hospital here. So in 1952, the land was donated and the community volunteered all of the resources they could possibly muster. Labor, gravel, bricks, concrete blocks, sand, whatever it was, but they just ran out of options. And so coincidentally, in 1952, Mr. Burick's geometry class at the Arbor Vitae Woodruff High School, which sat on this current property right here, was studying a million. And they wanted to collect a million of something to see how much a million really was. So after some discussion of matches and toothpicks, they decided to collect a million pennies and donate them to the hospital fund, which was very, very much needed and which changed the course of the completion of the first hospital in the Lakeland area. So in November 1952, these 17 students in Mr. Burick's class started writing letters. They wrote to first their relatives and friends, and soon the newspapers around the world picked up on this story. Pennies came in from all 48 states. In fact, the last state to come into the collection was the state of Delaware, and it was a Minocqua native who donated the last penny from the last 48 states, and his name was George Grundy. So from November 1952 to April 1953, 1,700,000 pennies came to Woodruff. So it was decided that on Memorial Day weekend 1953, a million penny parade would be held in Woodruff. 10,000 people came to Little Woodruff to see all those pennies on display in the school gym. And on Memorial Day weekend 1954, this penny was dedicated with Dr. Kate in attendance, hosting the ceremony, because she felt there needed to be some type of monument to celebrate the efforts of the students at the Arbor Vitae Woodruff High School. Thus, the penny has been sitting on this ground since 1954.
A true grassroots effort to bring a great hospital to the area.
Yes.
Tell me about what's going to be happening this month here at the Penny.
On Saturday, July 17th at 11 a.m., we will dedicate a historical marker on the site which commemorates the efforts of Mr. Burick, all those AVW students then and now who have contributed pennies to help not only originally build the hospital, but subsequently fund an Arbor Vitae Woodruff student scholarship, which is something we've been happy to do since 2004 from our museum. But the dedication ceremony, excuse me, will include music by the Lakeland Celebration Brass Brass Quintet. There'll be speakers. Otto Burick's daughter, Kathy and Marianne, will be speaking. The current CAO of Howard Young Foundation, the administrator of the Arbor Vitae School. There'll be music, refreshments, a tent, um, bring your own lawn chair. It will be a happy time to celebrate our Big Penny.
July 17th at 11 a.m., the festivities will begin. Show up at the Big Penny.
Yes.
We are going to head to the actual museum now. Marcia mentioned a couple times about Dr. Kate, but we only scratched the surface for her story, so let's learn more about her next time. All right, we're back in Woodruff, Wisconsin. We're doing a tour here of a different historical sites. We were at the world's largest penny, now we're at the Dr. Kate Museum. I'm still here with Marcia Dowd. You talked a little bit last time about how Dr. Kate was connected to the largest penny, the Penny Parade, but her story is a lot bigger than that. Tell us about Dr. Kate.
Well, Dr. Kate was an area physician. Her office was located right here on this site, but her greatest need was to have a hospital. Dr. Kate delivered over 3,000 babies in this Lakeland area without ever losing a mother or a baby. Consider many of those babies were delivered at home. She really needed a hospital so she would not have to travel to Ironwood, Michigan, Rhinelander, or Tomahawk. She's affectionately known as the angel on snowshoes because she made a lot of her house calls on snowshoe, by canoe, riding with a snowplow driver. She also had her own vehicle, which was a converted Model T fitted with snow skis. So she was a very determined woman to see her patients. She started out as a school teacher in Buffalo, New York, because her father did not think it was ladylike for her to become a doctor. So he finally relented, and she began practicing in New York City and then in Detroit, Michigan. And her marriage to a native of the Upper Peninsula brought them to northern Wisconsin. Initially, she gave up practicing medicine, but Minneapolis Dr. Torpy, who was getting quite elderly, found out she was a doctor who was not practicing, and he really persuaded her, quite definitely persuaded her, that he needed her help. So in the late 30s, she began practicing once again and started a office on Main Street, Woodruff, in 1939 and moved over to this site in 1947. So
It's interesting to hear names that you recognize. Dr. Torpy must be the person from Torpy Park.
yes,
Interesting to hear his connection.
yes.
And Dr. Kate, her story just doesn't end in Woodruff either. She became nationally prominent, at least for a little bit. Let's hear about that if we can head into the museum. Does that work?
That's fine.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, we're now inside the Dr. Kate Pelham Museum here in Woodruff, Wisconsin. We learned about Dr. Kate and how she was a physician in the area, and it was her idea to bring a hospital to the area, which was brought to life through the Million Penny Parade, and it's now dedicated by that world's largest penny that we saw earlier. But even though the hospital was complete, we weren't across the finish line, and that's where Dr. Kate on national TV comes into play. Tell me about that story, Marcia.
Well, Dr. Kate was a surprise guest on This Is Your Life. The producers and staff of This Is Your Life had heard about this wonderful event up here, collecting 1,000,000 pennies. So This Is Your Life contacted Otto Burek to get her on their show. And Mr. Burek knew she would never agree to be on a television show. So with the help of the Wisconsin State Medical Association and the Los Angeles Medical Association, they cooked up a scheme and invited her to Los Angeles to be a speaker at a conference. So Dr. Kate boarded a train in Woodruff, traveled out to Los Angeles. Meanwhile, and this was a well-kept secret, nobody knew this, her son and Mr. Burek and one of the students from the geometry class and other guests on that show were flown to Los Angeles. In those days, we had a weekly paper, the Lakeland Times. After she got on that train, the paper came out, and then it was the headline that she would be on This Is Your Life. But had she known that, she would never have gone. For one thing, she never saw that show. She didn't have time to watch TV. But when she's on this show, at first she's just totally out of whatever's going on. She just doesn't get it at all. Why is he picking her out of an audience? She's got to be at this conference.
Now you know. All right. Come along with me, won't you, to our chair of honor, please, Dr. Kate. That's what they call you up there, isn't it?
That's right.
Dr. Kate Newcomb. Come along. Here we go. As a country practitioner serving a wilderness area of 300 square miles, you represent an important segment of life in America. Come over to our chair of honor, please, Dr. Kate Newcomb. Let's give another hand, make her feel really at home here. Relax. Can you get back in the corner there? That's the stuff. Excuse me for reaching in front of you, but I know you always have that right next to you for fear someone faints or something, or needs it, so keep it close to you tonight. You've ministered to wounded hunters and trappers, treated injured lumberjacks and Indians, revived half-drowned vacationists, trudged miles on snowshoes through frozen woods to deliver babies by the light of a kerosene lantern. You're a legend in the great North Woods, a figure of pioneer America living in our own day. This is your life, as full of strength and freshness as the wind off your own snow-laden pines.
So she reconnects with some people she had not seen for decades. And at the end of the show, Ralph Edwards says, if anybody has a penny, send them to Dr. Kate, Woodruff, Wisconsin. Let's finish the job for Dr. Kate. Well, finish the job they did. $105,000 came here after she was on that show. Tons and tons of mail bags came here. I mean, tons and tons of letters in mail bags came to Woodruff on the train, went right to the school gym where it was all counted. Also, as a result of this show, corporations started sending equipment, baby formula, various things, and people knew about her again and were just taken by her very humble personality.
And This Is Your Life was a big show back in the day, right?
It was a very popular show. And she was live on that show March 17, 1954. The hospital opened debt-free a week later.
Wow. An incredible story. Everyone at home should check out the Dr. Kate Pelham Museum here in Woodruff, Wisconsin. We will continue our tour next time. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back on our tour of the Dr. Kate Pelham Museum here in Woodruff, Wisconsin. We're doing a departure, though, from our previous segments, because as you can tell, this is not Dr. Kate. This is the Nestledown.
Correct.
Marcia, tell me about the Nestledown.
The Nestledown was a soda fountain, gift shop, candy store on Main Street in Woodruff. It originated there from the 1920s. But in the 1950s, when I was a kid, growing up at AVW school. We just loved to run up to the Nestle Down during recess, grab a bag of penny candy, maybe, have a nickel Coke. But it was a favorite place, served so many purposes. You went there to buy a newspaper, you went there to buy a souvenir, you went there to buy a birthday present. They served lots of different things at their soda fountain. But it was just a happy hangout place for all age groups in town. So the museum decided we were going to do an exhibit about the Nestle Down, focusing on one of the favorite eras, the 1950s. Rock and roll, saddle shoes, poodle skirts. So this is our rendition here in this room.
And I don't think it's a thing that's here nowadays, right? There are no really soda fountains.
None.
Are there anything else you want to highlight in this room that you think would be interesting?
Well, we have the cash register is from the Nestle Down. Everything in here is true to the era. The Coke machine, the Coke cooler. How do we recreate this? Because obviously the Nestle Down was gone. Well, we used a new modern thing called eBay. And we were able to actually get a lot of these, signs and whatever, to recreate the feeling of what the 1950s were about. But the letter sweater on the mannequin over there with the awards actually is from the AVW High School. The textbooks scattered around in here are from the AVW High School. So the saddle shoes, the poodle skirt, all vintage from the day.
And an authentic jukebox
Absolutely,
as well.
a 1958 Wurlitzer jukebox, which plays.
Okay, well, like I said, last segment, stop in at the Dr. Kate Pelham Museum here in Woodruff, Wisconsin. Marcia, what are the hours of this museum?
We're open Monday through Friday, 11 to 3, and we do special tours.
And don't forget, July 17th at 11 a.m., there will be a dedication at the world's largest penny just down the street. Thank you so much, Marcia, for bringing me on this tour.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.